Hey folks, thanks for joining me, Critical Thinker here, with an important article, and it has actually made me do a 180 on the Parkland shooting. And you know, this is why I say, as an investigator into whatever you're investigating, always trust your first instinct, that intuitive voice. Just trust it, because in this case I didn't. And what I found is going to make me rethink the Parkland shooting, and and I'm wearing this for a specific reason. I know I wore this yesterday, and it's not that cold out, but I'm wearing it for a reason. Bear with me. So I've noticed that before we get into the actual article, I've noticed that a lot of people are throwing around the term deep state, almost as if it's the old proverbial they and them, and it is. But I wanted to define it because it's actually a real thing, and I'll leave a link to this in the description so you can read it, because there are a ton of links that you can click to and get a lot more in depth. I'm simply going to state that the Washington, D.C. deep state is a group of 8,156 appointed managers in 75 federal agencies that control the executive bureaucracy and tell new political appointees what they can and cannot do. The deep state is an official government program, well organized, comprehensive, and in charge. Now, I was aware that the president had the power to appoint, but I did not realize the numbers that we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. A typical president will go through 4,000 appointees. That's 4,000 unelected officials making policy. I'm not real fond of that. Obama, or Barry, took it a step further. He has 7,000 political appointees. The deep state consists of 8,156 political appointees. Do the math. See how, and wonder why Trump is struggling to get anything done. He's being undermined by the deep state, which is a real thing. A lot of you probably already know that, and excuse me for being patronizing if I seem that way, but it's important to define terms, and the deep state is a real government program made up of political appointees. So let's rewind. Let's go back to the day of the shooting in Florida. I learned about it about 5:15. My brother texted me, said there's a shooting in Florida. So I turned the TV on and immediately started downloading every piece of footage I could from every network possible. Because to me, the first 6 to 8 hours is the only thing sort of relevant if you want to, make videos about an event like that. After that, that's when it's just the talking points, the script, and the agenda that they want to advance begins. But within that first 6 to 8 hours, you still have, all that raw emotion coming from witnesses, and that's in fact when you find discrepancies in eyewitness testimony and accounts. So anyway, about midnight, I was putting it into the timeline, organizing, watching, and any more with events like this. I've trained my eyes to look for the repeating symbol, the repeating numbers, the repeating color, the repeating phrase. In other words, the occult aspect attached to these events. And I saw it, but I just dismissed it. I kept seeing it. It was an eagle. I saw it on the building, I saw it on the shirt, and I was like, dude, it's the school's mascot. Of course, if somebody's going to be wearing a school shirt, there's going to be an eagle on it. And then when I saw the picture of Nicholas Cruz being arrested, of that picture of him where he's halfway rolled over, he's looking up at the camera as if like, what the hell just happened? What are you guys doing? Which I'll get into in a minute, and I owe End of YouTube a little bit of credit, and we'll get into that in a minute. And then there it was. Boom, right there, the eagle. And I said, you know what? That's not a coincidence, man. I'm really good at picking stuff out. I'm not always good at the interpretive analysis of symbols. That's just not my strong suit. So I handed it off to a fellow tuber, Kaninigan, the raging reptilian, because he had mentioned some symbolism attached to it that he had noticed in the symbology of a frog. And he went on. So I said, you know what? Let him deal with it. Let's see what he can make of it. He didn't make anything of it. He got busy doing his own thing. That's cool. I got busy doing my thing. And I came across this today. It's important. This is from, and of course I'll leave a link in the description. This is from the State of the Nation, Alternative News and Commentary. Let me just enlarge that a bit just so you can see it as well. Operation Eagle Eye, code name for the 2018 Valentine's Day Massacre. Deep State's Operation Eagle Eye, the CIA directed, FBI protected false flag attack on Stoneman Douglas High School. Operation Eagle Eye. This is a quote from an intel analyst and former military officer. Parkland was fundamentally a military operation. The multiple shooters and support personnel were expertly trained in Israel by the IDF. Because this block operation was another Gladio PSY-OP, the thing is way too deep to investigate or even analyze. No one can figure out these false flags because they're made to be confusing on purpose. The complexity of Parkland is classic joint CIA-Mossad operation. The perps executed on a strictly need-to-know basis. Every piece was highly compartmentalized. Even the code name, Operation Eagle Eye, was known to but a very few in the chain. It begins with discussing the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That being an unexpected victory. And then it discusses the manufactured Philadelphia riots, looting, cars overturned, street lights toppled, fires set, etc. Who really incited them is the real question. In other words, the deep state knows that citizen riots and protests will eventually be required to remove President Trump from office. And they used Philly to send the message to the purple revolutionaries nationwide. There's a link on that. The purple revolutionaries are basically Soros, Clinton cabal. Excuse me. This is coffee, by the way. Quite significantly, the point spread had the Patriots a 4.5 point favorites, but instead the Eagles won this game outright. Moving right along, every bookie from Vegas to London knows that the Super Bowl is fixed. Just like every patriot and truther now knows that every mass shooting is a false flag, black operation, and PSY-OP, especially the school massacres. The most critical point here is that Super Bowl 2018 was but a prelude to the false flag mass shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School. In this way, the predatory bird known as the American Eagle killed the freedom-loving American patriots. The Illuminati at the top of the food chain take great pains to foreshadow their most fateful acts of terrorism with occult symbolism. They do have their own language that they communicate with. So that's just what I was looking for, and then I just dismissed it, and I shouldn't have. Always trust your first instinct. Then it goes on to discuss the similarities between the Chicago 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Fast forward to Valentine's Day 2018, and everything points to either military or SWAT team commandos having done the shooting spree at the Parkland High School. The one shooter was totally armored up in full combat gear. Quote, and I saw this about 3 days ago. I saw this. Why is the police here? This is a quote. This is strange. It's a high school teacher who witnessed the shooter firing his rifle. Excuse me. There's the eagle. Looks exactly like this. So actually, when I first saw it, I thought that it was maybe in Philadelphia. and they were still kind of had the Philadelphia Eagle banner up. That was my first instinct. I was like, wait a second, except it's facing, I think, the wrong way. This is David Hogg. Now, David Hogg in the eye of the tiger. There's a question. How does a photo of David Hogg like this ever get taken except by purposeful design? See, they're setting up all the symbolism. So, David Hogg in the eye of the tiger. Now, quickly as an aside, to further link it to, it may be in their eye. Rocky is a Philadelphia icon. Rocky / Stallone. Rocky is the Philadelphia icon. Eye of the Tiger was a song used in Rocky 3 where he fought Clubber Lang, a.k.a. Mr. T. Probably has nothing to do with it, but there's still a Philadelphia connection. Eye of the Tiger. Why was Deep State agent David Hogg used as the Eye of the Tiger for Operation Eagle Eye? And this is important. Because after decades of attempting to strip Americans of their gun rights, the decision makers of the very deep state formulated a brand new gun-grabbing strategy. The essence of this new approach is to use the children, particularly the teenagers, to do the dirty work. That means both shooting them as a ritual child sacrifice as well as framing them as patsies. It's already clear that the chosen fall guy, Nicholas Cruz, had absolutely nothing to do with the shooting. And and to YouTube, mi dispiace. I kind of dismiss that. I think you were the only one saying free Nicholas Cruz. So you might, once again, follow your instincts. You were dead on, man. Highly credible testimony has already been provided on the MSM networks by a very composed teacher that one shooter was firing away in full body gear. Other student witnesses spoke of multiple shooters, and there are links. I'm not going to go to every video, but link. These articles are really well written. Excuse me. Not only will the school kids continue to be ruthlessly slaughtered, those special recruits trained by COINTELPRO will function as the student leaders of the budding anti-gun movement. Politicians simply find it much more difficult to rebut teenagers. Enter one David Miles Hogg, who just happens to be an American student journalist who is also a, quote, gun control advocate and an activist against gun violence, end quote. How convenient. And how well his credentials and interests mesh with the new deep state scheme to remove guns from American society. Operation Hogwash, phase 1 of deep state's PSY-OP to impose strict gun control. Click it. Video, link to it. David Hogg holds anti-gun interview 4 hours before shooting. The photo of David Hogg in the tiger getup posted above is quite telling about his integral role in Operation Eagle Eye. Everything thus far points directly to him being the product of the CIA's MK-Ultra mind control program. Pay close attention to Hogg's tiger costume, as well as to his distant stare. Also take note of the highly staged photo shoot right next to the Philadelphia Eagles logo. Who took this photo, and why did they take it? So, No, it's not a Philadelphia Eagles logo. That still has, I think their colors are not the Eagles, but the school's colors are burgundy. But whatever. I know they're almost identical. As for the true meaning of this carefully chosen symbolism of the eye of the tiger, especially in the Parkland mass shooting context, the following excerpt is quite relevant. What does it mean to be the eye of the tiger? The eyes of the tiger actually refers to what the tiger's prey last sees prior to being killed. It's a reference to impending death of the prey. When a tiger goes in for the kill, it turns its ears backwards, showing the spot on the back of each ear, i.e. the tiger's eyes. Yeah, and the words of the rock group that first recorded it, Survivor, The deep state Democrats understand that they're in a fight for their life. The entire Obama nation is under dire threat. This phrase, "eye of the tiger," is very revealing, specifically in view of the Parkland shooting. The very deep state knows that they must go for the jugular, as a tiger and an eagle does instinctively. Excuse me. Operation Eagle Eye and gun confiscation. It goes on. It goes on. It's of paramount importance to understand that Operation Eagle Eye has been on the very deep state's drawing board for decades. They did not undertake this highly significant mass casualty event, MCE, without a lot of prior planning and practice. And then it goes on to discuss William Cooper predicting Parkland mass casualty event nearly 20 years ago, immediately following the 99 Columbine High School. And of course, there's a link to that. He further goes on and cites Bill Cooper's "Behold a Pale Horse." In particular, he drew attention to the long game being played in the shadow government. TB know that eventually the average citizen will be worn down by these incessant terror attacks, and that when they are sufficiently softened up, they will plead for whatever is necessary for their personal safety and communal security. So I thought this was fascinating because here's a special note. The name of the Broward County Sheriff is Scott Israel. Do you get it? As the quote at the top states, local law enforcement agencies across the country now send their officers to Israel on a regular basis for MCE training. Just as the Israelis have likewise been intentionally traumatized over decades, so too are the American people. In this manner, the oppressive national security state has been foisted on the United States. Whenever a terrorist operation is carried out commando style, it's recognized in intelligence circles to have the Mossad trademark. After all, their signature MO is, "By way of deception, thou shalt do war." And to conclude, the Parkland false flag shooting is just one small piece of a massive, covert, and ongoing enterprise to abolish the Second Amendment. This extremely dangerous network of terrorist cells is run under the rubric of Operation Gladio C, a super-secret enterprise, an organizational derivative of NATO's Operation Gladio. And there's links to that if you're not familiar with Gladio. So, the bottom line, these U.S. government-sponsored false flag terrorist attacks will only continue until we, the people, put a stop to them. I'll leave a link to this. I do want to leave you on a note. Government has no power. You have to understand that. Government is a non-entity. It's an applied philosophy, and it only has the amount of power that we provide it. That's what government is. It's an applied philosophy. It has no power without us and our consent. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.